In this lesson, let's see how to implement transfer fees, which is different from transaction cost or the regular ledger fees. Only token issuers can charge a transfer fee, that is, the sender has to send a little more to cover the transfer fee set by the issuer. Also remember, transferring XRP from one account to another will never have a transfer fees, as XRP is not an issued currency on XRP ledger. So let's first try to understand why we may even need transfer fees as an issuer. It can be considered as a business model for some issuers. So let's see how. So if this issuer is a facilitator, he is building a marketplace, he also has a token called XTP. So consider this scenario. He works tirelessly with some software developers and finally builds a platform. Consider it as a marketplace which has hundreds of sellers. In that, let's consider one seller and see how transfer fee helps the issuer. So this is a seller who has cute animal pictures to sell. For each animal picture, he charges 5 XRP. So there are thousands of customers going through all the digital products, and one of the customers likes this cute animal picture. So he sees that it costs 5 XRP. So this customer sends 5 XRP to this seller, and this cute animal picture is automatically sent to this customer's address. So that's how it works. So what's in it for this issuer? The customer directly sends 5 XRP to the seller, and the issuer gets nothing for building and maintaining this whole marketplace. Of course, it costs a lot to maintain a marketplace, right? So one way to make profit or get some income from this marketplace is to charge a percentage of fee whenever somebody purchases something from this marketplace, right? So for that, you can use issued currencies, and the issuer can set a transfer fee and then enforce this whole marketplace to use just XTP. In such a case, whenever some customer purchases anything from this marketplace, he or she has to pay in XTP itself. And whenever there is some transaction between two parties, the issuer gets the fee, and the transfer fees can be anywhere between 0% to 100%. So that's up to the issuer. Now let's see how exactly this transfer fee works between two parties. Of course, both parties should have established trust line with the issuer. Now Alice wants to send 2 XTP to Bob, but Alice along with 2 XTP should also include 1% transfer fee set by the issuer. In that case, in a single transaction, Alice sends 2 XTP to Bob and also 1% of transfer fee to the issuer. Well, the token paid in the transfer fee are burnt and no longer tracked in the XRP ledger. If the token is backed by off-ledger assets, this reduces the amount of assets the issuer has to hold in reserve to meet its obligations in the XRP ledger. Please watch our previous video tutorials to know about obligations and how reducing the obligations outside of XRP ledger would profit the issuer. So before looking into the code, let's see a couple of key things about transfer fees. The first thing is the transfer fee should be between 0% and 100%. You can't go below 0% and you can't go above 100%. That's one key thing. And the second thing is the same transfer fee applies to all the tokens issued by the same account. If you want to have different transfer fees for different tokens, use multiple issuing address. You can't have the same issuer issuing these multiple tokens and have different transfer fees for each of these tokens. You can't do that. You should issue these tokens from different issuing addresses. That's the second thing. And the third important thing is the transfers to and from the issuer does not have transfer fees. That is, if you are an issuer and you are sending your token to somebody else, it doesn't apply. That transaction doesn't apply for transfer fees. And if you are sending back the tokens to the issuer, then the issuer will have to accept it at face value. No additional fees should be paid while sending back the tokens to the issuer. Okay, now it's time to write some code and implement this transfer fee. First, let me copy the R address of the issuer and then replace the value of the field account here. Let me remove this and replace this. So this is the issuer R address, and the command should be account_info. So the command account underscore info fetches all the settings and information present on the account we have specified here. So let's check that. As you can see, this entire output, nowhere there is any mention of transfer fees, right? That is because by default the transfer fee is 0%, and by default it's not even mentioned here, which means the percentage of transfer fee is 0. So let's change that. Remember, this code is from our previous video tutorial, so please make sure to follow the order in which we are publishing these videos. Let me show the documentation for this. To set some properties on individual accounts, we need to look at transaction types, and the transaction type is account set. This is not a flag, by the way. It has a separate field called transfer rate. Let me show that to you. You already know how to set these things. So transfer rate, the fee to charge when users transfer this account's tokens represented as billions of a unit cannot be more than 2 billion or less than 1 billion, except for the special case 0 meaning no fees. So here 2 billion means 100% and 1 billion means 0%. So that's the range from 0% to 100%. I'll show you how it works. So the transaction type is account set, and we have copied the correct secret which belongs to the issuer of the token XTP. Yeah, that's right. Now we don't need this flag or this limit amount. Let me remove both of these fields. So the field we need is transfer rate. Okay, let me even change this sequence number. You need to fetch this sequence number programmatically from the ledger, but I don't want to write that part of the code because I have already shown it. I'll be fetching the current sequence number from this testnet explorer. I'll be removing the special characters in between here. That's it. Now let me set 1% transfer fees. So how to set that? Let me bring up my calculator. So for people who don't follow American number system, so this, that is 1 million into 1000 is 1 billion. Okay, so this is considered as 0%. If you specify transfer rate as 1 billion, it will be considered as 0%. So for 1%, multiply it by 1 and divide it by 100, you'll get 1% of 1 billion. Now add it to 1 billion. Don't miss the zeros. So this is considered as 1% transfer rate. Okay, don't worry about this. I'll be giving the formula at the end of this video so that you never miss the transfer rates because of this mathematical calculation. Okay, you can't just miss a zero because and then it will start throwing errors because it will be less than a billion, which means less than 0%, which is not acceptable. The range is from 0% to 100%. Okay, so if you just forget 10, it will throw errors and it won't set wrong percentages for you. Never mind, at the end of this video I'll show you how to calculate the percentage using a formula. Okay, now that's it. This is the payload to set 1% transfer fee for this account's tokens. Let me execute this. Let me copy this hash, transaction hash. Let me go to some test explorers. And this is not of much help. Let's switch to details. Nothing here. Of course, the raw will surely have it. The transfer rate is 1%. Let me open the same transaction in sum. So the description clearly tells that this is an account set transaction. It sets the account transfer rate to 1%. Very clear. I like that. Now you can check the transaction ID, that is transaction hash, with the transaction hash we got in the output. Just check this versus the transaction hash we have here. It's one and the same. I have just opened the same transaction in sum. That's it. Now let me comment this payload and execution code. And then uncomment this block of code. Now let's execute this account info command and look for a field called transfer rate. It should be present now. Oh yeah, as you can see, we have a field called transfer rate and it's set to 1%. I'll give you a formula using which you can convert this billionth unit into percentage. Okay, so keep watching. Now let's switch to our index.ts file wherein we can send the transaction. We have a family seed. I'll copy the family seed of our operational address, or in today's video we are calling that address as seller's address. We'll be sending it to the customer's R address. So I'll just try to send 1 XTP. This should in fact fail. I'll tell you why. Let's first see the error message and then let's try to fix it. So the error message is path_partial. Path could not send full amount and the transaction failed. That's because you're not sending the required transfer fee, because this issuer has a transfer fee and you are not obeying it. So let's see how to write that part of the code. But before that, your software has to check if this issuer actually has transfer fee. That is, this field, that is transfer fee, should have some value, right? So this is how you calculate the percentage. The percentage is equal to 1 billion minus the transfer rate, divide it by billion and multiply it by 100. That gives the percentage. Now if account info command gives an output which has transfer rate field, then you should include this SendMax field. If the gateway or the issuer is same, then everything is same except this value field. This value field should include whatever the sender is trying to send plus the transfer fee. To calculate that, let me copy this. So whatever the user is trying to send, multiply it with the constant, which is percentage, divide it by 100. Okay, in this case I know it's just 1%, so I'm just hard coding it to avoid excessive code, but I have already showed you the formula. You can just implement it here. So the total balance which will be deducted from the sender is here. This is the entire amount which will be deducted, and the first part is what the destination account gets, and this part, the second part, which has the percentage detail, is what the issuer gets. Okay, so now let's execute the same script and see if this time the transaction goes through successfully. The same transaction, but your script, your software should, before signing and submitting the transaction, should let the user know that he is not sending just 1 XTP, but 1 XTP plus 1%. You should show that and get confirmation from the user. Now let me copy this transaction hash and let's check for the result. And as you can see, using at most, this is the actual deducted number of tokens, and this is what is sent to the destination account. You can just click on it. Let me open it in a new tab and check for the recent transaction. The destination account should get only 1 XTP, and that's what is shown here. And the remaining XTP, I'll open another tab and let me paste the issuing address. This is the issuer address. Check back the other balance, which is XTP. Now the obligation has been reduced by 0.01 XTP, right? Previously it had 100 XTP. Now the obligation has been reduced after this transaction, which sent back 0.01 XTP to the issuer as transfer fee. So let's check back. Currently it's 99.99 XTP, right? Let me execute this script once again with the same command so that the percentage, that is the XTP that the issuer gets, is still 0.01 XTP, which will be burnt. And the proof is here. Let me refresh it. Now the obligation should further reduce by 0.01 XTP. And here you have it. Previously you had 99.99, now you have 99.98 XTP obligation. Now imagine the marketplace wherein thousands of customers pay in XTP on a daily basis. So the obligations on this issuer keeps on reducing on daily basis with every transaction. Okay. Now, is it even possible to reduce the transfer fees? Yes, it is possible. Just execute this once again with different transfer rate. That's it. This is 2%. This is 3, 4, 5 and 6. So the formula is very simple and straightforward. This is the formula. Just change the value of constant percentage and you will get the equivalent percentage as result. For example, in this formula, the value of constant percentage is 5. So the result will have 5%. Okay. Just change the constant percentage value to whatever percentage you want and then replace or put this constant results value as value to transfer rate. That's it. So that's all about transfer fees. Hope I have covered everything or most of the important stuffs needed to understand transfer fees for issuing accounts.